And as soon as we're live, I think we are now live. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bill Hayden, one of our U of L Cardinal Nurses.
Thank you, Maureen. That's great. So I'm excited about tonight and being our second segment. And I have an incredible honor for our second segment to be able to introduce the president of the University of Louisville, Neeli Bendapudi, Dr. Neeli Bendapudi. She's been the president of U of L for over 2 years, just recognized by the Louisville Business First as one of Louisville's most admired CEOs. And I think everyone that's involved with the University of Louisville would say that was for good reason. So, Dr. Bendapudi, we'd love to hear what you got to say.
Okay, people, I've only been on 4,000 Zoom meetings, so I forgot to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Thank you, Bill, for that very kind introduction. And as you know, as a leader, any recognition you get, you're really just the tip of the spear. It's everybody that has worked so hard at the University of Louisville. And so I'm grateful for any recognition of the hard work that our faculty, staff, and students put in. I am delighted to be able to join you here today. I will start with a little personal anecdote, if I may. Almost 20 years ago, I had an opportunity to study the healthcare industry in some depth. And this was at the Mayo Clinic. I got a chance to spend almost a year there studying 14 different disciplines, some at Scottsdale, some at Rochester, 14 different specialties. And through that process, I learned more about nursing than I knew. Did not realize how much complexity there is. It's both the high tech and the high touch, the high impact that nurses have. And so from then on, I've always said that when I'm in trouble, I want to make sure that there's a good nurse close by. More than anything else, that's what I would look for. And so today I want to say, thank you to all of you for joining this, and for anybody who's listening. Bill, for people like you who are working on the front lines, for all of our students who are getting ready to be nurses, I just want to say a thank you. Dean Harden always talks about how when American citizens are asked what professions they trust, who do they look up to, how nursing is always at the top. And it's with good reason. Your work has always been critical, but I don't think all of us really appreciated it enough till this global pandemic hit us. We recognize that you truly are on the front lines, and I don't know how it was, very, very appropriate that 2020 is the year of the nurse. I just want you all to know this might be the year, but we will celebrate you every day and every year, because it's very clear to us how essential what you do is for all of us. I also want to say a special thank you. So many of us are able to work remotely, and that's something that you are not doing. Every day, we know that you put our care as patients and our families first and show up to do what you do. So today we are here to brag on our students and how much they have done. I will tell you, our pre-licensure students are nursing assistants. Our RN to BSN, DNP, and PhD students are working licensed nurses. And these students, current and future nurses, have stepped up to serve the needs of the patients and of the community. And what we really appreciate is the fact that registered nursing is listed among the very top occupations in terms of job growth, with more than 175,000 projected openings for RNs in the US each year through 2029. So for those of you in nursing school, good for you. And those of you who might be watching, because we plan to publicize this, it is a noble, wonderful profession if you're inclined to pursue it. And I'm proud of our School of Nursing, because recognizing the great demand for the nursing workforce, we are committed to educating bachelor's prepared nurses to fill these needs. This past semester, fall 2020, our nursing school admitted the largest undergraduate class in the school's history, 120 in Louisville and 35 in Owensboro. And that's a total of 155 for those playing along at home. The DNP program is also very strong. We have 40 newly enrolled students. I know that this year has been incredibly challenging. True, 2020 has turned out to be more challenging than any of us could have anticipated. But through all of this, especially in the School of Nursing, you have all demonstrated what resiliency is, what grit is, what a sense of purpose is. And I am proud of the agility that our leadership has shown, because very quickly, not just looking at new modes of learning, that for our nursing students to say, how do we use simulations more effectively to prepare our students to serve? That has been truly impressive. So I want to say thank you to our dean, our faculty, our staff, our students, and especially our alumni. Thank you. You make us proud each and every day. And students who are going to go on to be nurses, remember that we are always home, right? We're going to be home. We want you to be in touch because we want to know about you and tell more stories like the ones you're going to hear today. So thank you so very much for inviting me, Bill.
Thank you, Dr. Bendaputi. It's great to have you. Thank you for all your leadership. So for those of you that weren't here last week, my name is Bill Hayden. I'm going to be your host for tonight. I'm a Baccalaureate of Nursing graduate from 1997. And I'm actually on the Alumni Council. I'm the treasurer of the Alumni Council, and I'm thrilled that I was asked to do this. So welcome to part 2 of Cardinal Nurses on the Front Line. We have 3 segments tonight that you're going to be really, I hope you really enjoy. I'm very excited. It's faculty, alumni, current students of the School of Nursing. So welcome. So for our first segment, I'm really excited about this. So Richard Rydell, who's the executive director of the Kentucky Racing Health and Welfare Fund, and Dr. Deidre Hayden, a nursing school graduate of U of L in 1997 with her BSN, 2009 with her MSN, 2019 with her DNP. She's an associate professor at the School of Nursing and clinical director of the Kentucky Racing Health Services Center. So before we start their segment, we've got a wonderful video, I think, that will set it up perfectly. Maureen?
They're at work before dawn, giving baths, walking, and feeding the beautiful animals on the backside at Churchill Downs. Most of the workers here will tell you they love their job, but it's not glamorous, the pay isn't much, and in many cases, there's no health insurance. That's why they come here, to the Kentucky Racing Health Services Center, just a few blocks from the track and run by the University of Louisville. Eric Shearer is getting his right shoulder looked at by Deidre Hayden, a nurse practitioner and the center's director. This is where Shearer gets his health care when he's in Louisville, working at Churchill Downs, because the health care here is virtually free.
Do you pay?
No,
Do you afford a doctor?
absolutely not. No. It's been very beneficial to me, very much.
And then they have a $5 copay for each of their medicines. But other than that, the care that we provide here is very comprehensive.
Money to keep the backside clinic operating comes from uncashed winning parimutuel tickets. And the patients, 85% of whom are Hispanic, aren't the only ones getting the benefits here. It's also the U of L nursing students who work here.
Just being able to practice here and learn so much, it makes you more comfortable for when you're out there in other settings.
This is also an environment that we can ask a lot of questions and nobody thinks it's a stupid question.
You're 73 in July.
73 in July, still over there.
More than 60 of Racetrack Eddie's years have been spent at racetracks, feeding, walking, and taking care of horses. When Eddie and his wife need care, they also come to U of L's backside clinic.
Come for the flu, come for sciatic problems, which got took care of. Come to the clinic to make sure I got my eye appointments when I need them. But basically, they take care of everything. If the racetrack didn't have this, they wouldn't have anything.
Means that much to you?
Mm-hmm. You get good care, they care about you.
This job is beyond rewarding to me, and I think it kind of does go back to the fact that these patients do appreciate the care that they receive here.
She's right, they do.
I just want to tell them thank you, and I'm very appreciative for all of their help and They've been very good to me here. And keep up the good work.
That's great. So, Richard, Deidre, welcome.
Thank you.
So Richard, let's kind of start with you. So going back to the beginning, you've been working in the racing industry for 50 years.
Yes.
And 33 years ago, you started with the fund. And so how did the Health Services Center get started?
Well, it all depended primarily on the foresight of the board of directors of the fund. And they wanted to be able to provide a permanent office space for us. So as you can see in the video, we purchased an old brick schoolhouse, which is a block away from Churchill Downs. And through the leadership of our then chairman, Don Ball, and our attorney, Bob Benson, they were able to navigate through the historical tax credits that allowed this building to be built. So part of the building is 40 apartments for older and retired low-income racetrackers and others. And then our permanent office for the fund is there. We had always wanted to have a health service center, and we built 2 exam rooms into when we did the remodel. But it was going to be 2 exam rooms and a hallway. So we, at the other end of the building from our office, was we had a daycare center. So for various reasons, that didn't go over very well. And when the provider pulled out, we were able to retrofit that area, 3,000 square feet for the Health Services Center. And we turned to the University of Louisville, and we were greeted enthusiastically.
Very cool. So, and this is one of the few programs like it in the country, right?
Yeah, yes. I'm aware of some major centers like ours in New York and also at Santa Anita in California. And TRAX do offer some assistance, but not necessarily to the degree that we are able to do.
So that's something, we've talked about before is the funding. How is this funded? And again, that's very unique as well, right?
Extremely unique. We received uncashed tickets. A person, after they make a wager and it wins, they have up to a year to cash that ticket. And after a year, it resorts back to the Racing Commission, who then turns it over to the Health and Welfare Fund.
Bill, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Deidre, Dr. Hayden. So since the center started, oops, by the way, that's my wife, everybody, if you didn't figure that out, the services have expanded. So talk about, sort of where the services started and as it evolved.
Well, we just thought it would be a facility where if a person didn't feel well or had some minor issues, primary care, and now we're into women's health, mental health, and we're looking at more, complicated cases than when we ever envisioned that when we first started.
And Dr. Hayden, you've actually been able to incorporate other faculty into that part of the practice?
Yes, I have. So in addition to those services that we provided, we actually have psych mental health nurse practitioners, as well as family and dual board certified nurse practitioners in women's health. So that's been very good. And we also incorporate the School of Dentistry into our practice. So we focus on interprofessional practice. So we want to be as comprehensive as we can with our patients.
And a lot of your patients aren't natural English. The English is not their first language, their primary language. How do you meet the needs of those patients?
Well, that's again how we rely on our community partners, the Latin American Studies and Latino Studies Department. And so what we do is we bring those students in that have to have a need to meet their course requirements in terms of an internship with their program of study. So we use those students, we incorporate them into our practice, and they get it's experiential learning. So they are able to meet the requirements for their course and at the same time serve the community.
Well, and the Health Services Center has a great history. I mean, so about 15 years, you've received, the Health Services Center has received some pretty amazing recognition. So can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe some of the background of the leadership?
So the leadership actually, you always have to go back to your mentors. And I was mentored by Dr. Whitney Nash and Sarah Robertson, who I'm always forever grateful for. I was actually a student at the Health Services Center and was asked to come back after I graduated. And over the years, the Health Services Center has won numerous awards. And so most recently, over the past few years, in 2017, we won a national award called the Edge Runner Award from the National League of Nursing. In 2018, we were recognized by Oprah Magazine as healthcare heroes.
And I think we've got a picture of that. Are you seeing that?
Oh, yeah. There's Whitney and Sarah. And in addition to that, most recently this year, we were rewarded an exemplar recognition by the Kellogg Foundation for our work in community engagement. So,
and those are some of the providers that were involved with the Kellogg Award?
Yes.
Very nice. Very well, congratulations. That's super. So kind of looking at, we talked about that, about the patient population a little bit. And Richard,
Yes.
so 50 years in racing and 50 years on the backside, how has the workers and the nature of the work, how has that evolved in the 50 years that you've been involved, and that is impacted by the care that you're giving now at the Health Service Center?
Oh, well, for the first 10 years of my 50 on the racetrack, I actually worked in the barns with the horses, and it is demanding. Working in all types of climates, working all kinds of hours. You're at a moment's notice, you may be shipped out of town. That has not changed. The fact that you use a pitchfork and brushes and hoof picks, they've been using those tools for at least 100 years. What has changed is the method with which trainers train now, and also the makeup of the demographics of the population of workers. For example, in 2009, in a survey, a surname survey, we noted that the mix was 50% Latinx and 50% Anglo surnames. 10 years later, last year, that mix was 3 to 1. There was 77% Latinx and 23% Anglo surnames. Also, you see, when I first started on the racetrack back in 1970, there were not very many women on the racetrack. Matter of fact, my wife was one of the first women to be allowed to work on the racetrack. So we've seen more women, and of course, then when you're modeling a healthcare, then you've got to be, respect that you have more women on the racetrack instead of a bunch of tough guys. You got some really hardworking, independent women also.
Very nice. So it seems like you've evolved quite a bit with your patient population. So, Dr. Hayden, you guys have a really amazing service for an at-risk community. And how have you adapted for COVID?
Sure. We have adapted. So we actually call that the daily pivot. You get your emails from the provost and from the president, and they say, oh, the pivot to fall, the pivot to spring. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a daily pivot at the Kentucky Racing Health Services Center. When you're dealing with limited resources and an at-risk population, you have Doctor of Nursing practice students, you have undergraduate students, you have Latin American Studies students, and all of those people, I have to protect them from COVID while we continue to provide the services that we provide to our patients. So that required a lot of communication with our staff from the Health and Welfare Fund, with Richard, I'll give you an example. Every time we think something's going to work, it doesn't. So telehealth in a population that has a language barrier, low health literacy rates, on top of health disparities. Not everybody has data on their cell phone. Not everybody has unlimited calls on their cell phone. So we went to implement telehealth. It seemed reasonable. Everybody else was doing it. But that necessarily wasn't best practice for us during COVID. So we had to readjust, again, how we continue to provide care and provide safety to our staff, students, and patients along the way. So every day, if there's a change in the CDC guidelines, we implement it. If there's a recommendation, we stick to it. And that requires coordination from our entire team.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for all your hard work. Richard, Deidre, thanks for opening up our second session. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
So I think now, before we get started in our next segment, we've got a great video clip to really set the mood. Well, I don't think that could have set the tone any better for the next segment for tonight. So, last week we talked about mental health and mental health support in the community. This week we want to focus on ourselves, so nurses. So we have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Vicki Hines Martin, professor at the University of Louisville School of Nursing, been there since 1998, got there the year, missed her by a year. And Dr. Sarah Shermer, who's an assistant professor that's been there only a year. So welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. So let's start with the impact that the pandemic has on the students. How have the students been managing during this historic time, and how have they been managing and how have they been helping? So what can you all tell us about that?
Thanks. More details about that. Sarah?
Yeah, I think the students are doing the absolute best they can. I think it's pretty clear that they're all stressed to the max, and working with professors to try to tell us what they need. They're very dedicated to their education, really wanting to get that experience in their clinical sites, wanting to maintain those quality expectations as we expect of nurses, and just trying to do the best they can, given all the adaptations they've had to make this semester. But there is a tremendous amount of stress.
So, and I know you guys have actually gone to using some some Zoom and other technical to support your students and to provide outlets for students to talk amongst themselves and nurses, not just students. But I think we've got a little bit of a video from one of the new grads that's been part of the K&A video series that you guys have been working on with K&A. So
Donna in the chat box. One said, thank you for your time and feedback. So much appreciated. As upcoming new graduate nurses, what are your expectations of the orientation, transition to practice from your employer, knowing that the last 6 months of your academic experience was altered? Who'd like to, okay.
I'll just add on here saying, as a graduate nurse now, my highest expectation and hope for my new employer is that they are just patient with me. I'm fully capable of learning. I have the education. I know the evidence-based practice behind what we do, but as far as skills, just be patient with me if I seem nervous doing things a lot for the first time. If I want you to come in a room with me while I do it, even a simple task like a PICC line change dressing or whatever, I'd feel more comfortable having somebody there, just because it's different whenever you do it over a Zoom call. You know, it's not really hands-on. Somebody's right there next to you.
So, Dr. Hansmartin or Dr. Shermer, I mean, how do you really address the concerns of students when they talk about the fact that their clinical experiences have in some ways been ripped out of their hands?
I think part of the most important piece is first dealing with the anxiety. There's always a natural anxiety for a new role, a new activity, even when in the best of circumstances. When we're looking at altering the way that has to be done, then we have to first deal with the emotional aspect of it. Try to be as supportive as possible. And our nursing program has done many things to try to be supportive of the population. And also allow people to say what they need to say, just like we had them do that in our, as part of our series. What did they have to say, and is what we have to hear. And so we were hopeful that doing this online, as well as doing it as part of our ongoing teaching, learning experience, that would be supportive enough to help people get through something that is additional stress on top of our already stressful environment.
And so incorporating other schools of nursing and the K&A, so from all over the state, how has that gone?
Actually, it's been fantastic. We started the project in March when we identified that mental health and self-help supports were needed. Participated and committed themselves to be in support of other nurses or to provide educational opportunities or whatever it was, or resources, whatever it was that we asked of them. And we had no problem getting volunteers for that. And we've had a mixture of things that were offered through this project. The project's called Kentucky Nurses Helping Nurses. And it is for anybody who thinks that they can learn a little bit about how best to cope and how best to address their self-care needs, but also looking at emotional wellness as an important part of being the warrior on the front lines. Sometimes we forget. Sarah, do you have something you want to add to that?
I think just a story about tonight. I was talking to my 7-year-old about what I was going to be doing tonight, and I was explaining to him about nurses and what they are doing to care for folks who are diagnosed or have COVID-19. And he said, without prompting from me, wow, that's risky. That's a sacrifice. And I think that, you know, recognizing this from the get-go, back even in March, we realized that nurses were really going to have to be kind of putting themselves out there in situations that were going to be very taxing and very stressful. I think we're entering into a new phase where that is definitely the case. And their physical safety is at risk. Having to manage multiple responsibilities. Oftentimes, nurses are breadwinners, they're caregivers, and then they're care at home, and they're caring for folks in the hospitals as well, often moving from one sad, tragic situation to the next without the time to process. So this program offers individuals an opportunity to discuss what's on their minds, to connect them to mental health resources as necessary, and also to engage with educational and other types of resources as well. So it's been a tremendous pleasure of mine to work with the KNA, the International Society of Psychiatric Nurses, and other psychiatric nurses from around the states and the country and the world to be part of something special in this way.
And you guys have been doing this since March, April? I mean, you've been doing it since the beginning of the pandemic. And you've actually have a digital platform, and you've actually been recording. So for nurses that can't actually make it, you do have some of these sessions recorded, or most of the sessions recorded. Is that true?
We do have sessions recorded. It was anticipated that we would have them all recorded. Like everything else, the best laid plans, and some of those were lost. We had a multitude of people from around the United States to come and do different topical areas such as anxiety or depression, or supporting your kids at home for the provider. We even had a nurse from Manchester, England, come to speak with nurses to tell them your experience is not so different from ours. And sometimes figuring out you're not the only one having difficulty is a good way to cope. So a lot of those things were made available. We've had people talk about moral distress, and we had our student group to come talk. We tried to identify things that we thought would be common experiences or things that would be helpful to others. We're going to continue to do that. We're not quite sure when it'll end, because nobody knows when COVID's going to end or how things need to evolve. But that's what we've been doing.
So we actually had a question before even tonight began. Someone asked, what can be done to engage our peers in the Nurses Helping Nurses program? So what are your thoughts about that?
We have had to try to figure that out ourselves. We have lots of people who want to volunteer, but there's been a lot of hesitation for people to utilize that service. We did a presentation for the Kentucky Nurses Convention recently, and as part of that, we had just an open discussion at the end of the program, and several of the things that people who sat in on that just informal talk gave us ideas as to what might be barriers. People don't necessarily want others to know that they're not handling it well. There's still the stigma of saying that you might have an emotional issue that needs some support, not an illness, just an issue that needs some support. But mostly, how do you tell others that you need something when you're supposed to be the strongest person out there? So we're going to try to figure it out. And Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I like the term. I think it's the superwoman complex. I think that says a lot about just some of the barriers that I know there are plenty of male nurses as well. Superwoman, Superman complex, right? Where you have it all figured out. And like you said, Vicki, people are looking to you for the answers and to make the situation right. And if you don't have the answers, it can be hard to admit that. Or if you're struggling, it can be really difficult to admit that. And I think that's one of our major barriers. Another one, I think, is just making our resources known. And decreasing stigma when it comes to mental health. And I think our hospital systems, our administrators can do a lot of good there in encouraging people by just kind of humbling themselves and saying, hey, I'm struggling too. What are we going to do about this? So I think in this case, it really does start at a lot of the difference can start at the top in terms of decreasing stigma when it comes to accessing mental health services and saying, hey, I need some support.
That's great. Thank you guys for all your hard work, all the coordination with the KNA, and just keep communicating. I mean, we promise. I think everybody on here can promise that we'll help spread the word. And just thank you guys. So appreciate it. So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and for those of you that don't know, for 11 years, the University of Louisville has had an extension. The University of Louisville School of Nursing has had an extension at Owensboro University. And there it is, where it's on the 4th floor of that building in that corner. I've been there. It's beautiful. And it's incredible. So if you don't know it or not, Owensboro is actually the 4th largest city in the state of Kentucky and the largest city in Western Kentucky. And there was a huge need for a really good baccalaureate program in nursing. And so University of Louisville and Owensboro Health actually coordinated and collaborated on an initiative to open a school of nursing. And it's right there on the healthcare campus. And it's truly a wonderful facility and with great faculty, and just the students, the energy is just there. It's incredible. There have been over 250 graduates, but that is growing exponentially because I know, I think Dr. Bendaputi said, or somebody said earlier, they've actually admitted 35 students, or they will graduate 35 students. So it's just an incredible opportunity for the people in Owensboro. And I think we've got some other pics maybe of some students. Yeah, right there. There's some of the students you see. They look just like the people in Louisville, but they're all the way to Owensboro. And that guy on the right, the really tall one, his name is Blake Booker, and he's actually our last guest tonight. So Blake, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. So, and you're getting ready to graduate.
Here, the scholarship committee was no longer able to pay me, which is fine, but she hired me. And from that point on, I've been there for 5 years now, and now I'm the office manager, running 2 offices. We have one in Whitesville, and we have one in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I would just say she's been a huge role model and a huge reason why I even decided to go into nursing, for sure.
And so you're working in 2 offices, and what else are you doing on top of school?
And a full-time nursing student. So yeah.
Wow. So you're obviously a leader. I mean, you tend to find leadership roles, but I believe it's because you set yourself up to be a leader. So you're an office manager, you're the class president of your class at Owensboro. So you had some interesting thoughts about nurses as leaders that I'd love for you to share with everybody.
Well, I mean, most definitely. I do think that being a nurse is definitely challenging. It tests you mentally, physically, all the above. But I also think that for those that lack the ability to just let their leadership abilities out, nursing definitely draws those abilities out. It really does. And in a way that nurses need to be leaders for themselves, for the staffing, but also for the patients. And I mean this because nurses are advocates. And when I say advocates, we advocate for our patients. And so we have to have the leadership ability to stand up for what's right for the patients, to provide the best practice or best care for our patients.
So I've got this picture that I want to show, and it was kind of hard for us to set it up, but it really does. It's just a great picture of you with a patient. And I believe you're giving a flu shot. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
And what's really ironic about this picture is that's an attorney from Owensboro that is actually a U of L graduate. And it just sort of sets the picture. There's actually another affiliation in and around Owensboro with Kentucky Wesleyan College and the U of L School of Law. So U of L is very entrenched in Owensboro, both with graduates. I mean, a future graduate on the right, an alum on the left, and its affiliation with in Owensboro Health. So I love this picture because it really defines a lot. I mean, it defines a lot about you, and it defines a lot about the university. So I just loved it. I just had to throw it in there, even though it was a terrible segue. So I'm really sorry. But something else I wanted to talk to you specifically about, Blake, is somebody asked this question in our pre-presentation chat, and I loved it. So I'm going to read it just the way they wrote it. What have you learned that will be most valuable to you as you transition into working as a BSN on the front line?
What a deep question. Okay, so with that being said, first of all, there's nothing wrong with obtaining an associate's degree in nursing by no means. However, what I've learned with having a BSN is that the education, the in-depth education, the in-depth learning that and experience that comes along with the BSN is much higher than other lower degrees. And so with that being said, the communication skills, the critical thinking, the leadership, the flexibility that one gains or learns is crucial, especially in an intense setting like a hospital, especially if many of us are on the COVID-19 unit during this crazy pandemic. It goes a long way, the amount of education and extra knowledge that one learns by obtaining a bachelor's degree in nursing really excels above others.
I'm sure Dr. Harden would applaud that, and Dr. Bendabuti. So. Well, we've talked a lot about the first two segments. We talked about how nurses are adaptable. We do the daily pivot, as Dr. Hayden said. How have you guys adapted, you and your class adapted to the changes with the pandemic and COVID? And how do you feel like that's affected your education?
Well, obviously, I always say this. So according to the Guinness Book of World Records, bachelor's in nursing is the hardest undergraduate degree to obtain. And I always say that COVID-19 just decided to make this just a bit harder. I do not wish going through nursing school and COVID-19 on anybody, but I think the experience is great. Nurses are on the front line during COVID. So, I mean, it's a great experience, don't get me wrong. But it has drastically changed the way we learn, the way we communicate with each other. But again, nurses are supposed to be flexible, so we're supposed to be able to deal with this. And we're trying to. But a lot of our classes, I hate that I'm not in person with my friends. I hate that I don't get to see my teachers because we're all very a tightly knit family group at the university in Owensboro. And that sucks, excuse my language, but it's not great. But we do FaceTime and we do collaborate. We have a bunch of online clinical when needed. If we can't do clinical and in-person setting because of COVID-19 or because someone there tested positive, so on and so forth. However, our staff here, and I'm sure just like the staff at the university in Louisville, has been nothing but helpful, nothing but eager to make everything go smoothly. And I feel like it has gone smoothly for all the crazy chaoticness that has been going on with COVID-19 in general. I still feel like I have received an abundance of education that has prepared me to be the nurse on the orthopedics unit starting on December 21st, because that's when I start. So, and I feel more than prepared, if not like super prepared.
Well, congratulations. We're super excited for you. just delighted that you're going to share our profession, and welcome to the profession, and soon welcome to the Alumni Society. And maybe you and I, now that I've got your number, you're in trouble because I'm going to be reaching out to you to help me coordinate something with Owensboro and really get the Alumni Association going there. So thank you, Blake. It's been great.
That sounds great.
So I
appreciate it, Bill. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been a pleasure. So I get the distinct pleasure now to introduce our dean, Dr. Sonia Harden, to maybe give us some thoughts to get ready to close out tonight. Dr. Harden?
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. And I just want to say that I appreciate Dr. Neely Bendaputi being here tonight with us, as well as each of the speakers, Richard, Deidre, Vicki, Sarah, Blake, and of course our MC, Bill Hayden. None of this could have been possible without you. I just want everyone to know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make this segment happen. So I want to recognize Dr. Jasmine Farrer and her development team for being here tonight, and Josh Hawkins and the alumni team for all of their support. And I must also give a special thank you to Delano Manson, who's the CEO of the Kentucky Nurses Association, for the use of the video tonight. Very moving and compassionate video, so thank you. This year we celebrate the Year of the Nurse in 2020, and this celebration is a recognition of Florence Nightingale's 200th anniversary. Therefore, I thought tonight I would share 2 quotes from her with you, because they're just as important today as they were over 200 years ago. She said, "Let us never consider ourselves finished nurses. We must be learning all of our lives." And I will tell you that the University of Louisville School of Nursing instills lifelong learning in all of their students. And this is seen time and time again as our graduates continue to pursue higher degrees and come back to us. And as you heard tonight, Dr. Deidre Hayden is an example. She has 3 degrees from the University of Louisville and has been a great alumni for us. Nightingale also said, "Very little can be done under the spirit of fear." Our Cardinal Nurses are on the front lines, and they are clearly showing no fear because they've stepped up during the COVID pandemic, and they continue to lead. Tonight, I have the honor of having one of our alumni, a supporter of the School of Nursing, and a true leader, Joy Tabler, to close us out. I want to thank you, Joy, for being our final speaker. And if you don't know Joy, she's known throughout Kentucky for her work with older adults. So Joy, I'll let you have the final word.
Hi, good evening, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Harden, for this introduction. And also thank you to Dr. Bendaputi and all the other speakers. I have to say, I remember when I first met Dr. Bendaputi and started talking about some fundraising ideas. I loved her response. It was, "Yes, let's do it." And I think that mindset and that enthusiasm and energy, we're all seeing that in the way she's been the leader at the University of Louisville. And Dean Harden, I appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit about my story tonight. First of all, my name again is Joy Tabler, and I'm a 1992 graduate of the University of Nursing, University of Louisville School of Nursing BSN program. And the degree that I have from U of L has opened many career doors for me. I started off in the hospital and ended up being an administrator of facilities. And my current role as a nurse navigator, it has placed me on the forefront, and I'm seeing on a daily basis the shortage of nurses, not only in our city, but in our nation. And I work with the older adults. The needs of older adults are increasing. And I know I've been hearing and reading that there was a silver tsunami coming. Well, I think the silver tsunami and the pandemic are hitting us at the same time. And it's causing isolation. which is resulting in physical and cognitive decline in our frail elderly population. And nurses are going to be needed to support these folks, not only in hospitals and long-term care facilities, but also nurses are going to be needed as care managers to teach and support these older adults that are trying to stay at home as long as possible. So as an alumni of U of L, I feel a very strong sense of pride that our community, our school is a community engaged and diversified in our focus. Our advanced level programs are developing community leaders and researchers that are paving the way right now for the next generations. And when Dr. Benapudi talks about the high tech and high touch and the high impact focus that she has, those things are all right in line with the goals of the School of Nursing. I want everybody to seriously consider tonight and going forward that how you're going to use your time and your talents and your monetary donations to support the efforts of increasing the enrollment in our School of Nursing, adding the connectivity that's going to take to provide virtual learning and telehealth programs, but also at the same time not losing sight of that human touch and that human engagement on a personal level that I know so many of my colleagues and I really struggle to keep that balance of human touch and the use of technology. And I don't want us to ever have to turn a student away because we don't have enough seats in an auditorium. And we should never stop recruiting the youth entering into this field of service where nurses put the needs of others before their own needs. And I want to make sure you guys take a look at the chat room for instructions for online giving. And one last comment I want to make is that Cardinal Nurses rock. All nurses matter. And I love all of you, coworkers, colleagues, and everybody. Thank you for the opportunities, and go Cards.
That was up, Joy. Thank you so much. That was perfect. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Dr. Harden. So last week. And we want you to stay engaged with the School of Nursing. Please, join, if you're an alumni, join our alumni Facebook page. Keep us in mind on your social media. And if you're a grad, we'd love to have you as part of the Alumni Council. So whenever you get those emails, please feel free to reach out to Deidre and myself, other members of our Alumni Council, and a lot of those links you're going to find in the chat page. And also, all this is recorded. If I haven't said it before, I'm going to say it again. Please share this recording. We really want to get the message out there. We have a fantastic School of Nursing, fantastic faculty, students, alumni, and thank you guys for joining the last 2 weeks. So go Cards, L's up. Love you guys. Take care. Have a happy holiday season. Bye now.